Hi, everyone, and welcome to your week 1 lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to make sure that I can share the audio here. And we are going to get right into it today. So as you can see, I'm a big pop culture buff. One of my favorite movies of all time is Mean Girls. So we are going to learn about communication through Mean Girls. So how do we communicate competence as told by the Plastics? And for those of you that haven't seen Mean Girls, shame on you. It is a Hollywood masterpiece. Actually, 2 years ago, went and saw the original Broadway cast of the Broadway version of Mean Girls, and they were nominated for a ton of Tonys. Great movie, but you don't really need to know the plot of the film in order to understand the examples that we're talking about today. But really, the girl in the red in the middle, this is Lindsay Lohan. Her name is Katie Heron. She's never been to school before. She's been homeschooled in Africa, and they moved to the Chicago West suburbs, and she kind of gets roped in with the Plastics, or the popular girls. So you've got Regina George, who is the queen bee, who is immediately to her left in this picture. You've got Gretchen Wieners, the brunette, all the way to the left. And then you've got Karen Smith, the girl all the way to the right with the little bow on her shirt. And I really like using this film for this lesson because I feel like the women in the movie really kind of ebb and flow through all three forms of communication that we are going to talk about today. So whenever I do a lesson, that's the Broadway cast right there, you'll see me do a lecture preview. So these are the three things that we're going to talk about in today's lesson that will have to do with your assignments, your activities, and all of that stuff for week 1. So first, we're going to define what communication is, what it looks like, how it works, that kind of stuff. That's going to be in the form of the functional perspective of communication. Then we're going to talk about the characteristics of communication, some public speaking stuff, but really, what does communication look like? And then finally, we're going to talk about modeling communication, or how we can communicate in a more competent manner. So first, let's talk about how we define communication, or the functional perspective of comm. All right, so communication is functional. We don't just talk just to talk. There's a point, there's a goal, there's an end game in mind. And this is the definition that we're going to work with throughout the course. Communication is the process of sharing meaning by sending and receiving symbolic cues, signs, and behaviors in order to exchange information. So we're not just talking, like I said. We're using communication. We're seeing and reading signs that people give us in order to exchange that information. So we make meaning based off of what people say, what we see, what they do, all that jazz. So how does this relate to public speaking? You might have seen that, things like delivery, body language, tone, rate, all of that stuff is how we make meaning. We use transitional cues. First we're going to talk about this. Next, we're going to talk about that. That's telling your audience something. And, reading your audience, being able to tell if they're bored or excited or, sleepy while you're giving your speech. That's all communicating something as well. So communication at its core is functional, whether you're giving it or receiving it. All right, so public speaking is an act of communication where a speaker presents a message in a formal and logical manner to an audience in order to achieve a specific purpose. All right, so what I do want you to remember is that communication is goal-oriented. We always want to achieve something, whether it's to learn, to persuade, to entertain. There's got to be some sort of goal in mind. And it serves the following 3 basic functions, will be the primary of our lecture today. All right, first we use communication to express affiliation. Next, we use communication to manage our relationships. And finally, we use communication to influence others, my favorite. So let's go ahead and get started with this first one, expressing affiliation. All right, affiliation is the feeling of connectedness we have with others. This is how we relate to other people. All right. So it's what we say, it's what we do that show kind of who we roll with. All right. So you show how you want to be associated with someone based on expressing liking, loving, or respect, or the opposite, the antithesis of that. You can show how much you don't want to be associated with someone based off of your dislike, your hatred, disrespect. Usually when we're in class, I kind of like to point out of the room and see how many people are wearing athletic gear or how many people are wearing Harper gear. This is showing other people without even communicating anything verbally who you're affiliated with and the kind of person you are. If you're wearing a Cubs jersey, maybe that communicates that if you're not athletic, you really enjoy baseball, you're a Chicagoan, you value tradition and culture. Cubs is deeply rooted in Chicago pop culture, those kinds of things. If you're wearing like a Harper track and field t-shirt, that's kind of telling everybody that you might be on the Harper track and field team. You might have competed with Harper track and field. Maybe you're related to somebody who runs for the Harper track team. So those kinds of things. So we can express affiliation just based off of how we dress, how we stand, where we stand, who we're whispering to in class, those kinds of things. So remember that communication isn't always just what we're saying, it's what we're doing as well. And how we talk. You know, Chicagoans talk in a very specific way. We use very specific slang. Italians like me use our hand gestures. So things that we do with our body and things that we do with our voices can express how we communicate and who we're affiliated with. So let's go ahead and take a look of a scene from Mean Girls here, where I feel like expressing affiliation is right up at the forefront.
Having lunch with the plastics was like leaving the actual world and entering Girl World. And Girl World had a lot of rules.
You can't wear a tank top 2 days in a row, and you can only wear your hair in a ponytail once a week. So I guess you pick today. Oh, and we only wear jeans or track pants on Fridays. Now, if you break any of these rules, you can't sit with us at lunch. Well, I mean, not just you, like any of us. Okay, like if I was wearing jeans today, I would be sitting over there with the art freaks. Oh, and we always vote before we ask someone to eat lunch with us because you have to be considerate of the rest of the group. Well, I mean, you wouldn't buy a skirt without asking your friends first if it looks good on you. I wouldn't. Right.
Sorry for my facial reactions. I just really love this movie. So as you can see here, this is kind of right when Katie starts to join the popular group. And Gretchen here is kind of telling Katie, hey, if you want to roll with us, these are these rules that we all have to follow. We have to wear this specific color on these days. We can't wear these clothes on these days. This is what we do with our hair. And she's doing this because when these girls walk down the hallway at school, they look the same, they act the same, they talk the same, their hair is made in a similar manner. And everyone in the school knows that these 4 women are the plastics based on how they're expressing their affiliation with each other. They look like they go together, they act like they go together, they use similar vernacular or the way that they speak. So even when they're separate, we know that this person is a plastic based on how they express affiliation. So that's just a fun example I like to show for that. The next functional form of communication is how we manage our relationships. All right, we're not just talking about your boyfriend or your girlfriend or anything like that. We're talking about anyone that you have a relationship with. And relationships are considered the interconnections between 2 or more people. So this isn't just a stranger that you've met on the street or someone that you're meeting in class for the first time. It's not a coworker that is their first day and you don't know who they are. This is someone that you've built some sort of connection with, that you have some sort of affiliation with. You know this person. That's really, maybe you might not know them well, but you know them, you enjoy them, or you don't like them. You have some sort of established relationship. Frenemies, best friends, cousins, teacher, student, colleagues, that kind of thing. All right, and relationships have an interdependence. What that means is what we do impacts the people that we're in a relationship, and what they do impacts us. So if you and your best friend are in the same class and your best friend is kind of goofy, they're the class clown, they don't turn in their homework on time, their projects that they do for class are always subpar. As a teacher, I might relate those characteristics of your best friend to you because I know that you're in a relationship with this person, you've expressed your affiliation. So when they misbehave, I'm kind of watching you to see if you're going to misbehave too. I don't know about you guys, but my brother is totally the black sheep of the family. Me and my younger brother are pretty similar. We're show-tunesy people. We're well-established. We're successful. We're popular. We have a lot of friends. And my middle child brother is the exact opposite. He's got like his 4 friends. He acted out in high school a lot, down with authority, super anti-government, super anti-religion, very, very outspoken about his beliefs. And that's not how me and my brother Nikki are. So Tommy is very much the black sheep of the family. And sometimes, you know, I remember when I would take teachers that he's had in the past, or have taken teachers that I've had in the past, people would be like, oh, you're Bill's brother, or oh, you're Tommy's brother. And you could tell by the tone of their voice that they've already had established thoughts about who I am as a person based on my relationship with my brother or my best friends or those kinds of things. So you want to be careful, especially when you're in, you know, the same environment as buddies, because people are watching and they're making judgmental calls about who they think you are based on what they know about the people that you roll with. All right, and communication is vital in order to manage your relationships over time. So if you want to stay close to your friends, if you want to stay close to your family members, you've got to keep that line of communication open. When the communication dies, so does the relationship. And we live in a very interesting time with Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and social media and texting and Snapchat. I mean, people aren't having face-to-face conversations anymore. I mean, look at this pandemic. You're in school for an entire semester, completely online. That's a totally different form of relationship management. Now, more than ever, we have to rely on Zoom calls and Skype calls and Snapchat messages and FaceTimes because we can't go out really. So, you know, maybe you've seen some relationships kind of deteriorate since March once this pandemic hit. Maybe you've gotten into new relationships with online classmates, or you've made random friends on Instagram because you follow their stories all the time. So communication is always changing, and this technological communication, this online form of communication is very, very interesting. In fact, it's a completely different field of study in communication studies. So if you're interested in that, I can definitely point you in the right direction. But let's go back to Mean Girls for a second and take a look at a scene where the management of a particular relationship might not have gone so well. And just a heed of warning, this is a PG-13 clip. There's a swear word in it. So if you've got kids in the room, you might want to put your headphones on or shoo them out the door.
Oh, God. You dirty little liar.
I'm sorry, I can explain.
Explain how you forgot to invite us to your party?
Janice, I cannot stop this car. I have a curfew.
You know I couldn't invite you. I had to pretend to be plastic.
Buddy, you're not pretending anymore. You're plastic. Cold, shiny, hard plastic.
Curfew, 1 a.m. It is now 1:10.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
You know what? You're the one who made me like this, so you could use me for your 8th grade revenge.
God, see, at least me and Regina George know we're mean. You try to act like you're so innocent, like,
Oh, I used to live in Africa with all the little birdies and the little monkeys. You know what? It's not my fault you're like in love with me or something.
what?
Oh, no, she did not.
See, that is the thing with you plastics. You think that everybody is in love with you when actually everybody hates you. Like Aaron Samuels, for example, he broke up with Regina, and guess what? He still doesn't want you. So why are you still messing with Regina, Katie? I'll tell you why, because you are a mean girl. You're a bitch. Here, you can have this and win a prize.
And I want my pink shirt back! I want my pink shirt back!
So you can see here that Katie was really close to these two new characters that we haven't met yet in our previous clip. This is Janice and Damien. These are kind of people that she met before she met the popular girls. And they were really her like true friends in the beginning of the film. And as she started to get more popular with the popular girls, she started to talk less and less to these two characters. Because of that, towards the end of the movie, their relationship deteriorates a little bit. Janice and Damien find out that Katie's throwing a party that they didn't get invited to. And that relationship transgresses. If you watch the film back, you can slowly see as the film moves forward that Damien and Janice are really trying to include Katie in their lives, but Katie keeps on pulling away from them to focus her time more on the popular girls. So this is just an example of a scene where the relationship gets worse because the communication isn't vital, like they're not speaking to each other. All right, and the last form or functional type of communication or goal of communication is how we use it to influence others. And this is one of my favorite ones. We often talk about persuasion here. And when we're talking about influential communication, we're really explaining how most of the time communication is influential. We want to go to Starbucks over Dunkin' Donuts. We want to take this teacher instead of that teacher. We want to go to Disney World for vacation instead of Disneyland. So we have to change our communication style to get a little bit more persuasive and to get a little bit more influential with who we're talking to. And we do that through this element of control. All right, so this can be indirect or direct control. When we talk about how influencing others can be influential, this is a direct type of control. What we mean here is the person speaking knows the outcome that they want to achieve. They know what they're doing. They've constructed what they want to say. They've mapped out how they want the conversation to go. They're very much aware of what's happening. Unintentional or indirect influence might be sometimes we say something, but the person that we're talking to takes it in a different way. Like the way that they've interpreted what we said was not what we mean. I see this a lot, especially with text, right? Kay, really? I just sent you this huge list of all of the cool things that we're going to do downtown this weekend and all of the fun places that we're going to go and all of the money that we need to bring with us. And you just say, Kay, you must be mad. That's not the case, right? Sometimes we don't mean the way that it's taken, but based off of how the other person's been primed with what they know about communication, verbal, nonverbal, dress, those kinds of things, says something, right? If I'm standing very far away from you, maybe it's just because I'm sick and I don't want to get you sick. Maybe it has nothing to do with me not liking you. You might take that as, oh, he's not standing by me, he mustn't like me. But really, I might just have come down with something and I don't want to cough or sneeze in your direction. So sometimes we say what we mean, intentional. Sometimes we don't mean what we say, unintentional. So here's a final Mean Girls clip that we're going to watch. And I want you to think about, as you're watching this clip, who's in control? Is it intentional or direct, or unintentional or indirect? And what, if it is intentional, what do you think the outcome was? If it wasn't intentional, why do you think the outcome that happened? So think about those as we watch our last Mean Girls clip. One of the most popular clips from the movie. I think you'll enjoy it. If it plays. This one always takes a while. And it might be a little quiet, so I'm sorry.
Hello?
I know your secret.
Oh God, busted. Just start apologizing.
It's because I'm sharing my screen, so it's taking a little while.
And crying. No, play it cool. Secret? What are you saying about?
Gretchen told me that you like Aaron Samuels. I mean, I don't care. Do whatever you want. But let me just tell you something about Aaron. All he cares about is school and his mom and his friends.
Is that bad?
But if you like him, whatever. I mean, I could talk to him for you if you want.
Really? You would do that? I mean, nothing embarrassing though, right?
Oh no, trust me. I know exactly how to play it. But wait, aren't you so mad at Gretchen for telling me?
No.
Because if you are, you can tell me. It was a really bitchy thing for her to do.
Yeah, it was pretty bitchy, but I'm not mad. I mean, I guess she just likes the attention.
See, Gretch, I told you she's not mad at you.
I can't believe you think I like attention.
Okay, love ya. See you tomorrow.
I had survived my first three-way calling attack. And with Regina's blessing, I started talking to Aaron more and more.
All right. So I just want to point out one thing here. That thing that you see that she kind of like put down is called the landline phone. I know that doesn't really exist anymore, but if you've never seen one of those, that's definitely in high school how we used to talk to each other. The cordless phone was game changing. So we've got 3 girls communicating, 2 really, and one seems to be a little bit more in control. And that person was Regina, the girl with the long blonde hair, right? She's antagonizing Katie, asking Katie some questions, very much knowing that Gretchen was on the other line, even though Katie did not know. So this would be a form of intentional or direct control. Regina knew what she was doing. She was setting the girls up, trying to create a rift between them to get Gretchen to be mad at Katie, so Gretchen would start paying attention to her, Regina, a little bit more. So this is a way, a bad way, like a dark way, that we can use persuasion to influence others, that we can use control to facilitate the conversation. So if you haven't watched Mean Girls, watch it. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. And if you would like, for 10 points extra credit, you can write different scenes where you feel characters are expressing affiliation, where they are managing and maintaining their relationships, or they are using their communication to influence others. Give me 3 scenes for a couple points each, and I'll give you 10 points extra credit. That'll be due by Sunday. All right, so I'll post that in your Blackboard. You should see that below. All right, let's move on to the second part of this lecture, and this is your characteristics of communication. So when we speak, whether it's in public speaking or with others, our communication has a DNA, just like how if you were on Tinder or Bumble or Grindr or whatever dating apps there are out there, you would list several characteristics of who you are as a person. I like long walks on the beach. I enjoy chocolate. I'm into fitness. I hate winter and I want to move somewhere cold. These are all things that tell us a little bit about you, where we'll swipe right, swipe left, DM, PM, whatever you want to call it. Communication also has characteristics or descriptions of what makes communication unique. So if communication were to have a dating app, these are some of the things they might use to describe themselves. You're definitely going to want to write these down. I know that they're in that PDF that I posted, but you will have an assignment relating to these 6 characteristics of communication and how they relate to the next clip that I'm about to show. All right, so the 6 defining characteristics of communication is first, communication is symbolic. We need a symbol or we won't understand the communication. All right, next, communication requires a shared code. All right, if we don't understand what that symbol is, then we won't be able to interpret the message. All right, so we have a stop sign. If we take the word stop out of the stop sign and you're driving, you know that that shape at the end of an intersection means that you have to stop. If we lived in a different part of the world or a different part, well, not the country, here a stop sign is a stop sign, maybe we wouldn't recognize that sign because in our world, that shape at the end of an intersection doesn't mean to stop. So you need to understand the symbol, and that code or the symbolic code needs to be shared between the people that you're having a conversation with or that you're in communication with in order for that meaning to be interpreted correctly. Communication is linked to culture. Wherever you live, whatever culture that you're part of, saying things and doing things means something different. For example, let's take the word girl, right? In the English language, the word girl refers to a woman, oftentimes a young woman, a lady, who is biologically female. But in the gay community and gay culture, girl could mean anything. Like, it could mean, I've got a story to tell you. It could mean, why the heck did you say that? That made me upset. It could mean, hey, you're my best friend, girl, right? So communication is definitely linked to culture, so much so that words, gestures, dress, all changes depending on the culture that we're in. Communication has intentionality. We talked about that already. We're either direct, we say what we mean, or we're indirect. Sometimes we don't mean what we say. Communication occurs through channels. A channel of communication is the mode of communication, or the instance of occurrence of the communication. So right now, our communication channel is Blackboard. It's online. We're communicating through Zoom. If we were in the classroom, the channel of communication would be face-to-face. When you're texting your friends, the channel of communication is your cell phone texting. So it's really just how the communication takes place. What's the channel? All right, and then the sixth one is communication is transactional. Everyone plays a role in communication. Just like how you would go to the grocery store and you complete a transaction, right? I want to buy this tomato. I'll scan the tomato. I'll put it in the bag. You give me the money. I ring you up. I print out your receipt. I hand you the receipt in the bag. I say good day. You say good day. That's a transactional process. I have a role. You have a role. I am the employee. You are the customer. Communication is the same way. You're either a speaker or an interpreter or a listener. So there's someone who's creating or encoding a message, and then there's someone who's receiving or decoding a message. So after you hear what I say, you interpret what that means, and then you make a response. So that's what I mean by transactional, is everyone who's involved in the communication process has a role to play. Whether or not they play that role appropriately is, on them, but communication is transactional. There's a speaker and there's a listener, an encoder and a decoder, a talker, an interpreter, those kinds of things. So I want to show you a clip from a Jimmy Fallon episode. They often play this game show called Password. And this is an excellent clip where all 6 of the characteristics are present. So I'm going to play this clip. I'm also going to post this clip as part of the assignment, so you don't have to rewatch this whole video to find it. But your assignment for this clip is I want you to identify one of the 6 characteristics that are present in this clip. So what's a symbol? What's a shared code? If there is no shared code, why do you think that is? What's the transaction at play here? So really kind of explain each of the 6 characteristics of communication by using examples from this clip. I think that you'll really enjoy it. Students love this clip, or at least they lie to me and tell me that they love it. So let's go ahead and watch this clip now. We're not going to watch the whole thing. Oof, I'm so sorry. Sharing the screen made.
Now, the rules of the game are very simple. I will give each of you a password, and then you will give a one-word clue, that's one word only, to get your partner to guess that password. The team with the most points after 4 words wins. Any questions?
Well,
Great.
I was just wondering.
Fantastic. We're going to start. First clue goes to Kesha and Terry.
Okay, Anthony, don't look. Okay.
The password is
And Kesha,
burrito.
why don't you start us off. One word.
I suck at this. Okay.
4 words. All right. All right. Let's focus. Let's Kyle. We can do this. We can do this, Kyle. Come on. Capital connection.
Okay. Chipotle.
Burrito! That's it.
I play the trumpet every time I go.
Plays the trumpet.
Oh my gosh. Next clue goes to Anthony and Jimmy.
All right.
The password is Snoop.
Anthony, you are up first.
Okay. Can we feel it? You got it? You got it? All right. For shizzle.
Oh. And
I can't say Jay-Z. No.
For shizzle.
Is that a hyphenated word?
No, it's just one word. It's one word.
I should know what that. Cool. No.
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 Yeah, kind of.
No.
Oh no.
Yes, you got this.
I don't know if I
Ready?
do. Okay.
Yeah. Ready? Ready? Yeah. He said.
I know what he said.
shizzle, yeah.
I know. And you said yeah.
No. No.
No, he didn't say yeah.
You said yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Is there a time limit on baby?
no,
She said
no.
baby
What'd you
face.
say?
I said ludicrous.
Oh, no.
No.
That's ludicrous.
Okay.
4 points.
Remember my first clue, right?
Yeah.
All right, say it.
For shizzle.
Manizzle. Gotta make it one word. Uh-huh. Yes! Say it! Stop! Say it!
I don't know.
Oh. Okay. 3 points, Jimmy. 3 points.
All right. Ready?
This is getting so embarrassing.
I got it. Ready?
Do you want to go through the clues that have been given?
No. Ready? Dog.
Snoop?
Oh!
All right. So I think we gotta X out of there. There we go. So these are things that I've already kind of talked about, but let's just go over them one more time. I don't know why it won't let me do the full screen again, but whatever, we'll just stay here. So when you're watching that clip, there are lots of interesting things going on. Obviously, the symbol and the shared code aren't shared by Jimmy and Kesha or Anthony, and I forgot what her name is. So lots of stuff that you can talk about there, right? The stronger the connection to the symbol, the clearer the intended meaning will be for the interpreter or the listener. So if you have no idea what fashizzle my nizzle means and who said it, you're not going to share that code, right? So you can't combine those symbols and interpret that meaning. So it was very clear that the women were having a hard time understanding the yeah and everything that they were doing, right? They just weren't coming to the conclusion of Snoop Dogg. So you want to make sure that the symbol that you have is strong so that that shared code, that interpreted meaning can be, you know, interpreted correctly. Culture affects the way that your messages are interpreted and shaped. Definitely some cultural stuff at play, right? We've got different races, different sexes, different, you know, Kesha's a singer, the other woman is a writer for NPR, Anthony is an actor, Jimmy Fallon is an actor, late night talk show host, singer. So a bunch of different cultures involved there. So what's going on there? You can talk about that. You've got intentionality. This is how we give and give off information, right? Jimmy was trying to put emphasis on the gesture when he was going, yeah, but Kesha interpreted that as yeah, ludicrous. So there's lots of stuff you can talk about there. The channel, what mode of communication was this? How did the communication occur? And then finally, the transactional process, which is people exchange messages in both sender and receiver roles. So definitely talk about what the symbol was, whether or not there was a shared code, talk about how the cultures between all four of these speakers were different, what was intentional, what was unintentional, what was the channel, and who are the speakers, who are the listeners, those kinds of things. So that's what you're gonna wanna do for the assignment, and that PDF that I posted might have more explanation and examples for these 6 characteristics. So make sure that you take a look at those. All right, finally, I wanna go over 3 different types of communication models This is how we communicate. We communicate very differently in different scenarios. And I'll kind of wrap this up a little bit more quickly because this will really kind of ease us into next week when we talk about culture. So the first model of communication is going to be linear. Then I'm going to talk about interactional, or we'll talk about unidirectional. And then we'll talk about the competent model. So how we communicate and what that looks like using graphs, I guess. If we can make it mathematical or data-driven, this is what communication might look like if you draw it out. First, in the unidirectional or one-way linear mode of communication, we have our transactional process where there's one sender and there's one receiver. In this model of communication, there's a speaker who sends a message. The listener hears it. That's it. We're done. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go right to jail. No room for feedback. All right. So this is called linear because it's one way. It's just straightforward. I tell you to do something, you do it. All right. This is usually when you're telling someone to do something, you're talking at someone, you know, maybe when you're getting scolded at your job, or mom's like, finish all of your dinner or you're grounded. You know, there's really no point in responding. You just do it. This is very old and outdated. So what happens when I tell you to do something and you go, well, no, I'm not going to do it. You've just responded. So now we're no longer linear because you've bounced a message back to me. So this is where we get into the interdirectional or the interaction model of communication. And this is a little bit more cyclical. So we have an encoder or a sender or a speaker will craft a message. That message then gets received by the listener, who decodes it or interprets what that message means, and then starts to encode and craft their own message in the form of a response and sends that back to the speaker. So in the interactional model of communication, both people are taking on both roles. So I might start as the speaker and send you a message, but once you send me a message back, I become the interpreter. Then I craft my response and become the speaker again. So this is why it's a little bit more circle, never ending, all right? But this isn't the best form of communication. And feedback and talking and all of that stuff, this is kind of what a conversation looks like, but it's really not competent communication. All right. And this lesson is called competence, communicating competence. So how do we do that? We do that in the final model of communication. And this is the competent directional. If you take one thing out of this lesson, out of this lecture, this is what I want you to take. Competent communication requires speakers to consistently assess the cultural, the situational, and the relational contexts that exist throughout the communication process. Woof. What does that mean? Well, it means this. You've got two people having a conversation. I send you a message, but before I send you that message, before I encode and create a message for you to respond to, I should think about you. What is my relationship to you? Is this the first time that I'm seeing you? Have we known each other for 15 years? Are we on the equestrian team and we're about to talk about horse stuff? What is my relationship? Is what I'm about to say appropriate for that relationship? Then I have to think about, well, what's the situation look like? Where are we? Can I say what I'm about to say based on where we're at, right? If I want to talk to you about this hookup that I had last night and we're in church, probably not the best time to have that conversation. If I want to talk to you about who I'm voting for in November and it's Thanksgiving, probably not the best time to have that conversation. So, is what I'm about to say appropriate based on our relationship? And is what I'm about to say appropriate based on the environment or the situation that we're in? And then finally, that third tier in the circle, is the culture that exists between us. How are we culturally different? Is what I'm about to say culturally insensitive? Do I understand your point of view? Have I walked a mile in your shoes? Right? So if we can learn to assess before we speak and reassess after we've gotten a response, the other person's culture, the situation that we're in, and the relationship shared between the two people, that is how we get to a competent communication mode, right? So all of these things that we see politically, and the far lefts are screaming at the far rights, and all of these things that we see religiously about how my religion is better than yours, or your religion isn't good enough, and even the stuff that we get into conversations with at work about whether we want to see this person or not see this person, or are these conversations that we can even be having at work? Are these conversations that we can even be having with these people? Are these conversations that are appropriate culturally? So we have to think about that. The more you think about those three realms or contexts, the more competent you're going to be. This takes practice. Sometimes I even slip up and say things I shouldn't say, especially in the LGBT culture. I'll come home after Pride Parade covered in glitter, talking about my experience, and my parents are like, oh, I don't want to hear about this, right? So even I'm constantly fudging up my competent communication model. So we want to be this more than we want to be the other two. All right. So that was a lot to give you. This was probably about an hour. So hopefully you've taken good notes, and you may or may not have assignments. You will have an assignment related to the password game, but just make sure that you review the rest of the folder and finish all of the assignments. It has been wonderful to share one of my favorite lessons for you. I love Mean Girls. I love Jimmy Fallon. I love talking about competent communication. All right. That's all I have for you folks, and I will see you next week.